Okay, guys, so I'm fucking pissed. I just recorded this episode and got to the end of it. I was like 20 minutes in. I was on a roll. Everything was coming out great, and I realized that I didn't have the microphone hooked up. So I was sitting back and be like, "Okay, cool, get ready for the next one." I look up and I see that there's no cable attached to my phone, and I was like, "Fuck, shit." Oh, I was not happy. So anyway, I'm gonna keep the same energy going, and we're just gonna roll with it. So anyway, happy Tuesday. I have a question for you today. Whose job is it anyway? All right. Hopefully, some of you understand the analogy to the show. Whose line is it anyway? Maybe just you 80s and 90s babies, but you get the point. Anyway, so what am I talking about? Well, FTOs, field training officers. Cool. What the hell is that? Well, generally speaking, field training officers, their primary responsibility is training new hires, orienting new hires to a particular agency, because you can come and be the world's best EMT, world's best paramedic, but if you don't know the logistics of how an agency runs and operates and is set up, you ain't gonna be able to do shit that first day. So it's their job to orient people to not just the job itself, but that particular agency, and get them positioned for success, to know where everything is, what everything is, and how to communicate with everybody, so on and so forth. That's the primary job of an FTO. Now, they also will help with people who are newly upgraded certs. So if you're an agency that has the full range from driver to paramedic, then you have your drivers who are brand new EMTs that have to go back through an FTO period. Because yes, they're familiar with the agency for their initial cert level, but they need to be brought up to speed and make sure they show proficiency in the things that are relevant for their new certification. So that's kind of the dual role in general of FTOs, pretty much no matter where you go. I've seen a lot of different ways of doing it, and I have seen different pay structures too. Usually it's not much, if anything. It's really more of a status slash title kind of thing. That's not to demean it or take away from it, just unfortunately, that's how they're often treated. So that's those are the primary people that FTOs are responsible for. Now, you will also have situations come up where employees need remediation. You have people who need to remediate, a whole pocket card because they shocked somebody. They, manually defibrillated somebody who, was awake and talking to them. Never heard of that happening before. Anyway, um, oh my God, I knock on the table and the dog thinks that someone knocked on the door. I swear he's got 2 brain cells left that are fighting for third place sometimes. Anyway, so sometimes FTOs will have to handle remediation cases where people are clearly underperforming and clearly causing problems, or there's been a detriment to the patient, and part of their punishment is they have to go back and remediate things, which in my opinion, I would say, well, there comes a point where you just need to fire them, because there's no amount of remediation that fixes certain levels of stupidity or apathy. You can remediate all you want, but if you don't give a shit to do the bare minimum of your job, then there's really not much point. But, you get into HR stuff and employment law and whatnot, so that's a whole separate conversation. Point being, FTOs have some pretty specific jobs that they have to do. Now, let's look outside of those cases. You have student riders, both EMS specific student riders, but also non-EMS riders. One agency I worked at in the past would have respiratory therapists from the community college that would do X amount of ride time. I didn't realize RTs had like a lot of assessment training that very much mimics a lot of paramedic training. That was news to me working there. We also had a local med school that would send students all the time. That's like several services around here do that. Several med schools around here do that. But the one service I was at did both. So we had those level of providers showing up, which, RTs are pretty comparable to paramedics as far as overall scope of practice. But these, MDs and DOs coming through, they're going to be way smarter than us, way more advanced. This is just child's play, fun for them. But the question comes, okay, well, who's responsible for them? Because you got the FTOs, they're the field training officer, so shouldn't they be training students? That makes sense. Kind of. There's another category of riders in here too, is just people who are observers. So, citizens that just want to go experience it. I did that. That's not common anymore, at least not around here. I can't tell you the last time I had someone that just wanted to come along and just ride along for the hell of it. It just doesn't happen. But I'm sure there's other places in the country that does happen all the time. So what happens with those people? Whose job is it to keep track of them? Whose job is it anyway? Well, long story short, it's everybody's, and I hate to be the one to break the bad news. And I've heard every excuse in the book of, well, we don't get paid enough to do this. Well, we don't get paid enough, period, in EMS, bro. So sit down. But there's a couple of things to think about. One, if we want to be respected as an industry, we need to change the narrative of how we present to other people. We've beat this horse to death, figuratively speaking. So how do we do that? Well, there's a number of ways in which we do that, but when it comes to third riders specifically that aren't EMS third riders, treating them with respect, if they're clinical individuals, interact with them appropriately. If they're an RT student, cool. They're most interested in anything and everything airway related. Shocker. But guess what? At least the students that were coming through me, they had to do 12 leads. They had to know ACLS inside and out. They had to do a bunch of other stuff. So they had to go through the motions and do those things. They had to do patient assessments. So if they're, that's a pretty lateral relationship there. But even with physicians or, physicians in training, sure, even if they're first years, they're not going to know a whole lot. You may know more than them at that point, depending on, the program and when they have you ride. There's actually one med school around here that makes their med students get their EMT first. I believe it's the part of their first year. It's a requirement. You have to pass the EMT class, which is awesome because, it gives them a foundation and an initial interaction and hopefully respect for EMS, and it lets them see on a ground level what we do. So when they are in the ER, in the OR, whatever, they have some level of appreciation for what we do. So with those kinds of riders, you need to interact with them clinically and professionally. And it helps when you treat them well. It helps when you show them the ropes and deep dive with things on them and let them pick your brains, and you can pick their brains too. There's plenty that a first year med student can teach you that you probably don't know. And the same with a respiratory therapy student. I'm sure there's things I'm not sure. I know there's things that respiratory therapists know inside and out, backwards and forwards, that I look at it and I'm like a caveman reading a Greek manuscript. Like, don't have a clue. So it's good to pick their brains on shit and let them pick your brains too. It's fine. Build that positive relationship with them. And then when you have third riders who are just observers, they're, maybe interested in EMS, or, they work in an industry that interacts with EMS, or whatever the case may be. Maybe they're a fucking journalist and they want to do a special on EMS, day in the life kind of thing. Cool. Let them use that as an opportunity to build a positive reputation for EMS. I don't understand why we miss this so much. These are not the people to treat like shit. Well, I mean, none of our third riders should be treated like shit. But these are not the people to be treated like shit because they have such a broader interaction and influence with society than we do in some ways. Yeah, we see a lot of patients all over, but what do all the rest of us do when we get off shift? We go the fuck home. And we don't go mingle with most of the rest of society. One, we don't usually have time to. Two, most of us don't have an interest in doing it because that's what we do all fucking day at work. So, but you're dealing with a lot of people who are going to have influence, who can have influence that reaches far beyond you. Why not develop a good relationship with them? Why not give a positive portrayal of EMS to these people? So that's all of your non-EMS third riders, and I'm sure there's other categories and whatnot. But when it comes to your EMS third riders, okay, your student riders, they're not there to learn your agency. They're not. That is not their job. Their job is to learn how to assess and treat patients. Period. The end. That is their job. And sure, like when I was doing ride time in paramedic school, I had a job change. So I was doing FTO time with the agency one day, and then the next day I would go and be a paramedic student. So two totally different roles. So yeah, there was a little bit of cross training that went on because there was an understanding of, hey, like you're in paramedic school, but you're also going to be a paramedic here. So we'll teach you everything, which was great. But that's the role of a student, is just to learn the medicine, to become proficient in the medicine to achieve their certification. All right. So helping these people, one, I'm sorry, there comes a point where you just have to say there's good karma. If you're going out of your way to benefit someone who is making a professional leap, that only has good outcomes for you. And I don't mean this like a tit for tat, like you're running an exchange with the universe, but if your frame of mind is giving and that's how you live your life, you will receive in return. Like that, I don't care what your belief system is, religious platform, whatever. That's how the world works. Eventually, the givers receive, and they receive a lot. So, just on a basic level, give of your time to these people. Yeah, okay, sure. You're working on a long shift. You want to come in and veg out. There's a time and a place. But let's say you're on a 24-hour shift and you have a student who's with you for 10, 12 hours. Okay, cool. That 10 to 12 hours, your primary job is seeing that their needs are met and that their questions are answered and that they are getting the experience that they need. Now, if you have a brand new student, they're going to have all the questions. They're going to want to or they may not know the questions to ask. That's the other thing, is they may not know what they need to know. So, when you have a student coming to you, especially an EMS student, it is on you to sit there and grill them on, hey, what do you need to know? What do you need to work on? What are the things you feel scared about? What are the things that you feel confident in? Figure out, you basically have to interview these people and then adjust your day accordingly. If it's a final semester paramedic student, and they're already doing their capstone, they just need one more day to meet their hour requirements, and they're pretty well autonomous, cool, just let them go, just be there on standby for whatever they need and carry on with your day. But if it's a brand new paramedic student or a young EMT student, whatever, you have to take some time to connect with them and help them and see, what have they learned, what have they not learned, what do they need to work on, what can you help them with. That's all an investment in that person. But also, if you need a selfish motivation, it's an investment in your future too. Because guess what? And no, I am not old. However, I'm a good bit older than a lot of the people coming in these days. I'm 34, almost 35 years old, and there's 18-year-olds walking in the door here. They're going to be doing this a lot longer than I'm going to be doing it. I want those people who could potentially be taking care of me when I get old and fall and break shit. I want to make sure that they know their job well and that they're good at it and that they fucking care. And that if they're going to stay in this job, they're going to do it the right way and actually take care of patients. That is quite literally, it's a selfish investment in yourself. Plus, they may become your coworker. So you have all that much extra motivation to train them well, because who wants to work with somebody who doesn't know their head from their ass? Who has to go around their elbow to find their butthole? Like, you don't. Why wouldn't you want someone who has competence? Why wouldn't you want to have a positive impact on somebody that you may be working with? It's so short-sighted to blow off third riders. And the whole, well, I don't get paid to do this, because I've heard that shit for literally years. And not just about students, about a lot of different things in EMS. Okay, yes, I understand. EMS doesn't get paid enough, period, bro. None of us are getting paid enough. Period. The end. Suck it up. That's just unfortunately the way it is. Until we can start shifting some things, until we start gaining respect from people as an industry, then we're just going to be stuck in this vicious cycle. However, if you put a little bit of effort into building a positive relationship with the rest of the world, hey, maybe things will get a little bit better. But anyway, when you go above and beyond, it will be noticed. Now, does that mean it will be noticed by your current employer? Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because there's a lot of times where EMS agencies will see people that are going above and beyond and will capitalize on it and will use it. and unfortunately sometimes manipulate those people and turn them into their lackeys. I have seen that happen plenty of times. You can't deny that shit happens. So I'm not saying that it's going to give you immediate benefits, but what is the number one thing that we know about EMS is that reputation is everything. It is a small ass world. It is a very small ass world. I know people across this entire fucking state, and honestly, in a whole swath of the country. We all know each other. We all talk. Reputation's everything. So if you have a reputation for taking shortcuts, for being bitchy, for not going the extra mile, for complaining about everything all the time, guess what? That reputation is going to follow you, and it is going to impact the jobs that you can get. It is going to impact your experience if you decide to go be a paramedic student or whatever. It is going to negatively impact you. So go the extra mile, because even if your current boss doesn't see it, one, going the extra mile and treating people the way that you would want yourself and your loved ones to be treated is just the right thing to do, period. But also, if you want some selfish motivation, somebody will eventually notice it. And it will open up doors for you. Not just those specific actions, but being in the habit of going above and beyond and going the extra mile. That pattern of life will positively impact you for the rest of your life. The outcome of your life now is based on habits from the past 5 to 10 years. Period. The end. That's just the way it is. Habits and decisions the last 5 to 10 years are the reason you are where you are now. So if you want to change where you are in 5 to 10 years, you have to change your habits now. You have to start the conditioning process now. So instead of griping and bitching that you don't get paid enough, because none of us do and nobody gives a damn, how about you look at paying forward and looking at the intangible benefits of what's in front of you? Now, another reason that some people don't like having riders is because they like messing around at the station and doing shit they shouldn't. Y'all know it. You're not going to admit it. You're not going to fess up to it. You're going to blow a bunch of smoke and make a bunch of excuses, but we know that's ultimately the reason why. Anyway, so carrying on, think about mentoring students, mentoring third riders as an investment in your future, both professionally and personally, your personal health. You may need these people. So you should be training them to be as good and or better than you are. So that when they show up for you, for your kids, for your loved ones, you have some level of confidence that they're actually going to do well. That's all I got for you guys. If you learned something, good. Share it with your friends. If you were offended, good. You probably should be. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye bye.